And the disadvantage with traditional publishing is the time, and the disadvantage with independent publishing is the money. So either way, you're going to have to figure out which
Either way, it's
disadvantage
hard.
you're more comfortable with. Right. Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast. Woohoo!
Welcome back to the Wax Quill Podcast, everyone. Today, I have a special guest, a brand new debut author. Would you please introduce yourself, Olivia?
Hi, sure. My name is Olivia McCarthy, and my debut novel is a YA dystopian sci-fi, and it's actually written under the semi-pen name of McCarthy, and that was done intentionally because my main character, and it's only written in his point of view, is actually a boy. I am a mom of five, and I have my oldest daughter is going to be 12. Then I have a 9-year-old, 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 18-month-old. And
Wow.
yes, it's very busy. I'm a very avid reader. And one of the things that I've noticed over the past decade or so, and maybe I'm more in tune with it now just because my daughter is coming up in the YA genre, and I'm fairly concerned about the content that she isn't ready for sneaking into her books because I know what's best for her. I know what she's ready and capable to handle. But I've noticed that there are so many wonderful, strong female protagonists in YA books, and there are not very many male protagonists in YA books right now. So I was like, you know what? Let's write one that can appeal to both genders, but there's a whole discussion we could have about how this really pretty flowery name like Olivia might make a boy be like, I want to read that. So anyway, just doing the best I can with what I got. I was going to use my middle initial, which is M, but two M's and two C's right next to each other confuse everybody. And I know that for a fact because that has been my email for over a decade. So I was like, everyone's going to think there's a typo on my cover if I put O.M. McCarthy.
Mm.
So I didn't. I just put O. McCarthy. But the book is called Reach, and it's a no spice YA dystopian sci-fi. Lots of fun.
Wow. So, how long did it take you to go from the idea to write it to actually writing it?
Oh, that is quite a story. So I originally was working as a freelance writer,
Hmm?
and I have a teaching degree. So I was writing curriculum or standardized test passages, like the
Oh, wow.
reading passages. So I've done that, and that's freelance. So it's always been very inconsistent. And then my name isn't actually attached to any of that because it's contracted out. But so, gosh, probably 10 years ago now, so literally a decade, I had this idea for a story, and I was so excited about it. And I used the concept in a passage and then I was like, oh, but there's so much more. Like a little 250 word passage is not a full length novel. And there was just so many more things that I wanted to develop. And so this idea was bouncing around in my brain for over a decade. And then I kept having babies, and things kept seeming impossible to write. Gosh, probably 3 years ago now, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I've always wanted to be an author. I've wanted to get that book out of me. I feel like it's there because this idea, those early concepts that were written in that passage, which are now completely, totally different than what I ended up actually writing, except for the tiniest thread of people being on Mars. That's literally the only thing that kind of carried through. But still, that's what happens when you edit and you grow and you craft. So, anyways, over a decade of this idea bouncing around, having family life, having all sorts of things. So, yeah, it took me a decade. And the second book is going much faster. I'm very pleased to
That's
report.
great.
So, that's good news.
Okay, I'm so sorry about my voice. I'm getting over being sick and I sound awful. But
Don't worry
um,
about it. It's great.
I have two questions about what you just said.
Sure.
The first is, do you think that being a mom has helped your story, or has it made it harder because you had to wait so long to write it? And my second question, I'll save until after you answer that one.
Okay. Oh, gosh. So, like anything, I don't want to just give you a pat answer because I think it's really important that we acknowledge that motherhood has difficult moments and that logistically it makes things harder. That being said, it has also made me more creative. because I am constantly problem solving. You don't have 5 kids in the span of a decade and not become a good problem solver. That's how you survive the difficult moments. So I think that there are definitely logistical challenges, and it's frustrating to know that I waited so long to do this. This has been a dream of mine to be a published author for a very long time, even before I had kids. So it is definitely harder when you have the logistical elements, but it's also such a creative boost when you have all of these kids, and my sons have no clue about it and how things are going because they're little. But my daughters, they all come down, they ask me questions. My oldest daughter is reading my book. My 6-year-old wants to ask me how many copies have I made, how many she so the book is Reach, and she asked me, she goes, how many reaches have you made? And I was like, just the one. And she goes, but you have 6. And I was like, those are copies. Um,
Aw.
Definitely understanding a little bit more about the publishing industry at that age is tricky, but it's been definitely trade-offs. There's definitely positives, and there's definitely, I can't produce 7 books a year, but I can do what I can do. And it's been a wonderful journey.
Wow. That's so cool that you were able to do that. I'm going to ask you a different question because
Sure.
I'm just
I'm an
locked
open
into
book.
this. What advice would you give to parents who are working, they're trying to be good parents, but they have these stories that they really want to write and they're starting to lose confidence?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I feel like I need to give you a tiny little backstory here,
Yeah.
which is that for like my entire life, I've struggled with chronic anxiety, and it has been a huge struggle of mine to learn how to thrive with that. And there is something incredibly vulnerable about writing and publishing a story. And it's tricky because, like, your previous question where you asked if I wish that I had been able to do it faster, yes, I do. But I also know I was not confident enough to do it at that time. So my advice is probably advice that you might want to talk about with trusted friends who really know your situation. But my advice is to say, when you have that thing in your heart and it has excited you for so long, but your brain is saying, stop, no, no way, you can't. That's absolutely not possible. My crazy advice, because I think I inherited the delusion gene out of all the genes that can come through a family. I just got the I'm delusional one, is to go for it, is to try it. Proving yourself wrong is the most effective thing I have found for how I've been able to thrive with this very anxious personality and condition. So that's my advice. But again, I don't know everybody's situation. But if you're starting to lose confidence, if your brain is saying there's no way, you can't do it, you can't handle this, there's no way you could possibly make this work, try. Use those problem solving skills that you have honed as a parent to see, how can I try to do this? Because sometimes you do have to pivot and you have to stop. So I was working on the book, and then my 5th child was born, and I knew I wasn't going to touch the book for 6 months because that was a time where I was like, I am just adjusting to being a mom of 5 and having 5 kids running around, and one of them is a little newborn. I'm going to be up in the night. There's saying that you're going to go for it, and then there's also adjusting to where you're at, because sometimes you do have to take a step back, but there's also saying, I'm not going to let this hold me back too. So, how I manage to do it is my kids go to bed and I write for an hour. So, I have an hour of writing time. And because that's what I've got, I have to make the most of it. So, I don't know if that really answers your question, but I hope that it offers somebody a little bit of support or help or just encouragement, because I think you can do it. As a parent, you do solve problems all day long. And one of the problems is just time. And how can you carve out the time to make it work? And sometimes there are seasons where you just can't. And sometimes there are seasons when you can.
Mhm. That's wonderful. So, how did you feel when you handed your book to your daughter?
Oh my gosh. So it's funny because I really wrote the book for 14 to 17 So like more of a little bit of an upper YA. She's a pretty advanced reader. She's in sixth grade. And there's nothing in my book content wise that would be traumatic for her or anything inappropriate like that. But just like the overall story is maybe a little bit over her head. So actually, my husband is the one who handed it to her. He read the book and he was like, she can read this. And he's like, hey, do you want to read this? And she's, I can. And she was so excited. If it's a little bit over her head, that's fine. She can ask me questions about it or she can come back to it. But it's pretty cool to know that my own child can read something I wrote and that she has it up in her room and I've gone in to tuck her in and she's been reading it in her bed. And it's like, oh, this makes me so excited and just really fun. Actually, all my kids really love to be involved in what I'm doing. The little boys don't get to be very involved in it because they're little. But the girls, like I said, they come down, they ask me questions, they want to know how many copies of your book have you sold, mommy? And I'm like, we can talk about that another time because I'm doing great, but it doesn't sound great to a little kid. It's definitely wonderful to be able to share it with them. And that has been just the coolest thing about this is just the sharing. And then my oldest, actually, she and I share a like Google Docs account because I want to see what she's doing to make sure we're appropriate and on board here. But she started writing her own story because I was writing stories. So like how cool is that to inspire the next generation of authors? Just because not only do kids read, they also want to do what their mom does a little bit. That's really fun.
That's wonderful. Oh my goodness. My grandmother wrote poems and she had a journal full of them. And so one of my aunts had it printed out in a book. And I love that. And for me, I never met her. She's actually my great grandmother. I never met her, but I can read her poems. So that's so
Yeah,
special to me. And it's amazing that now you have something that, who knows, your grandkids, maybe your great grandkids will read. So that's just so cool.
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely the dream is to have this book be passed down, not just as like family lore, but as, oh, wow, this was so fun. Like she started this whole tradition of storytelling for the whole family, which I think is so fun.
Wow. So tell me a bit about why you chose the path that you took for publishing and how it's been going.
Oh, sure. Okay. I think that if you do some research into the two options of publishing, which are traditional and then independent publishing, you will see that with traditional publishing, you have time is really your investment. It's a lot of time. With independent publishing, your investment is money. And with five kids, I don't have the time to invest in waiting. I just don't have extra time. Like, I don't have the ability to meet deadlines unless I'm the one in charge of them. Whereas what I did have was a little bit of financial flexibility so that I could go ahead and I could publish the book myself. So, like, I did it as professionally as I could with editing. I did 3 rounds of editing, a professional cover designer, professional typesetting. But when you've been sitting on an idea for 10 years and it won't leave you alone and you want to get it out in the world and you're like, no, I'm just going to do it. This is going to be awesome for me to do it, to achieve it. I was like, okay, you know what? I think that querying and waiting and trying to figure out how it can take years before a book that is accepted or agented with a traditional publisher is bought, sold, and even on the shelf. And so I was like, you know what? I just feel really strongly that getting this story out there and starting my path as an independent author makes the most sense for my family because I do need the flexibility to be like, okay, everybody got COVID, so we need to sit back for a little bit. And I'm sure that there are many publishers who are extremely flexible and extremely generous. But as far as like how fast I can write books and how reliably I can do that, that's just up in the air. That's going to be an as comes and goes type thing because kids are always growing, always changing. And so having the different options, I did the whole deep dive and tried to find out, like, okay, what were the advantages and what were maybe some of the disadvantages? And the disadvantage with traditional publishing is the time, and the disadvantage with independent publishing is the money. So either way, you're going to have to figure out which
Either way, it's
disadvantage
hard.
you're more comfortable with. Right. And I was more comfortable with spending the money than waiting, especially since I've been waiting for a decade to even do it.
Was there Anything that you would have spent more on or spent more of your time on, a certain part of the book, a certain draft that you worked on, the cover design, the editing? Is there anything you would have gone back and changed?
I think that one of the really difficult things about writing is that the more you do it, the better you get. So like I was actually going through my book and I was like looking for details and I found something and I was like, that's not right. That's supposed to be different. And it was like, so anyways, it was great. I was able to ask my cover designer who also did my typesetting. I was able to ask her like, hey, could you just change this real quick? And so she changed it. She changed the wrong word. And she's done that for me a couple of times because it's really common to find a mistake. No editor is 100% going to catch all your errors. And that's true even of trad published books. So it's super easy to have it be fixed. I think one of the things that I would really have done a little bit differently is I rushed through the copy edits because I really wanted to get the book out. My editor is amazing and she's fantastic. She was able to, usually she doesn't do it this way, but she had her version of the document open, my version of the document, we were connected, and she was making suggestions and I was accepting the changes or making the changes as she was in there. Usually she does it all and then I do it all. And so I learned that there are some drawbacks to that. So there were some things that happened in the copy editing stage where just some things, I think some more things were missed and they're fixed now because I caught them after publication and it is an easy fix. But maybe next time I would not rush through the copy editing stage.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Thank you so much for talking about this. Tell us where we can find your book.
Oh, of course. All right. So the book is Reach by McCarthy, and you can find it on Amazon. So it is in Kindle Unlimited, and my page reads have been stuck this month. So if anyone wants to read on KU, that would be awesome because I am stuck at 777 pages for the month, and I have been 2 weeks. It's been weird. But the paperback is also on Amazon. The ebook is exclusive to Amazon. And then there's also the Kindle Unlimited option. But paperback is also available on barnesandnoble.com. It's supposed to be up on target.com, but I haven't found it. So I did opt to use the two different printing services. So Amazon has its own printing, and then there's also Ingram Spark, which is how you can then be distributed through Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart, those sorts of places. So I'm trying it out. I actually don't think I've sold any books through anything other than Amazon. So we can
Yet.
just stick with Amazon. It's easy. But yeah, the yet is key. I'm figuring it all out. I'm very much a learn as you go type of person. And that has been interesting to
Mhm.
say the least. I found because I did order proof copies through Ingram Spark that print quality is just a little bit better. The paper is a little nicer and the book feels a little bit more solid. The Amazon print copies are a great book and they're easy to get and they come right to your house and you don't really pay shipping if you have Prime. You do, but it's all wrapped in there. So however that works. So anyways, like they're both great options, but Amazon has been easier for me to work with as an author, even though I like the quality of Ingram Sparks better.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're so
Hopefully, we'll see you
welcome.
again and I'll have my voice and we can really chat back and forth. But
Yes, yes, I'd love to.
congratulations.
Thank you. I
It's
think that's going to be
beautiful.
backwards on there, but that's what my book looks like.
It's so pretty.
Thanks.
Okay. All right.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
Click down below, guys, get her book, and we'll see you later.
Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Bye!